Hi, this is Tasheena.
And this is Jonathan.
And this is We Watch What We Watch, a podcast where a married couple come together to chat and talk about the new movies and TV that's on right now.
Yes, and today we have two interesting ones. Our first one is Twisters. Twisters, I'm just going to rip this straight from IMDb. As storm season intensifies, the paths of former storm chaser Kate Cooper, lured back to the open plains after a devastating encounter years prior, and reckless social media superstar Tyler Owens collide when terrifying phenomena never seen before are unleashed. The pair and their competing teams find themselves squarely in the paths of multiple storm systems converging over central Oklahoma in the fight of their lives.
Wait, did you say Kate Cooper? Did IMDb get it wrong?
What's it supposed to be?
Carter. Her name is Kate Carter.
Kate Carter? Just says Kate on the credits.
Why'd you say Cooper?
It says Cooper on the summary.
Did they mess up her name on IMDb? Because it's Kate Carter.
Now we have to dig into this.
Oh my gosh.
Kate Cooper. Kate Carter. There are two results.
What?
Kate Cooper. It's Cooper.
No, and on Letterboxd, it's Kate Carter. And her mom is Kathy Carter, which I laughed in the movie because I'm like, that's a ridiculous name.
I'm seeing Kate Cooper and Kate Carter are mixed into all these results.
She's so bland, they forgot her name. So yeah, on Letterboxd, it is Carter.
Well, on the Twister fandom wiki, it's Cooper.
Oh, okay. What? I'm going to do more research after this. We'll come down.
University grad Kate Cooper. This is a BFI article. Calls her Cooper. I wonder if it was changed in post-production or something.
Maybe.
Because I'm seeing different references.
Yeah, it definitely says Carter on Letterboxd multiple times.
See, IMDb just credits her as Kate.
Okay, see, IMDb is like, we don't know.
I'd have to see what she actually showed up as in the credits.
I just never seen this before, where someone has two different last names and
that's crazy.
Two different spots. This is riveting stuff for the podcast, by the way.
This is the most interesting thing that happened in the movie.
Definitely for Kate. This is the most interesting part about her, is that her mysterious last name. Okay.
Well, see, she changed it when she moved to New York so that people wouldn't find out.
Oh.
That's why when someone asks her what's her last name, she doesn't answer because she can't give her real name.
Maybe she doesn't know in the movie, too. That's why she doesn't answer what her last name is. Okay.
All right. Let's get into Twisters.
I'm about to say, you threw me off the train with this whole Cooper Kate Carter thing.
Debacle.
Okay. A debacle, yes. So, I wanted to introduce a new segment called The Movie According to Letterboxd. If anyone has been on Letterboxd, they know it's slightly the Wild Wild West out there.
One big snark competition.
Exactly. And Letterboxd is a weird mixture of people giving honest reactions, thirst tweets, people trying so hard to be funny, like just a mixture. So I go through, I'm trying to find something that really captures the essence of the movie for me. And today from Letterboxd I have 4 Twisters. What if Mr. Beast was hot, chased tornadoes, and believed in you? From
That's
Agnes. Gold. Honestly, fair and correct. And also did not mention anything about Kate because she is paint drying.
She is the suck zone.
She is the suck zone.
Sucks up all the charisma.
I'm kind of... I feel so bad. I don't want to come for this actress because honestly, I've not seen her. We're talking about Daisy Edgar Jones. She's been in a few other movies. I just haven't seen those movies. So this is my first...
Where the Crawdads Sing.
Exactly. I haven't seen that. So this is my first impression of her. And I'm sorry, it's not a good one. She's very bland. And I understand she is the straight man to Glen Powell's wild persona. But just because you're the straight person doesn't mean you have to be bland. You could still have personality. And I think that is, for me, the critical misstep of this movie was centering it around her. Because I thought the movie, overall, this is an okay sequel to a legend. Because I love the first Twister movie. To me, it is a perfect, campy popcorn blockbuster full of schlock and heart. It has the great chemistry of Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton. And even though it makes no fucking sense half the time, it doesn't matter. It's great. It is a joyride for me. And this was okay. There was definitely some moments that were fun. It was mainly on Glen Powell's shoulders. But it's fine. That's my overall. It was fine.
Well, just like the two tornadoes in the movie, where only one of them can survive. It's Glen Powell here, and never seen someone work so hard to provide chemistry for two people.
Oh, if you want to know if Glen Powell can have chemistry with a wall, he can. We discovered that in this movie.
I think you originally phrased it as, I didn't realize that Glen Powell could have chemistry with a doorknob. Now, I will say, so we're going a bit hard.
We are.
I'll say that I am probably more positive on her performance. I don't know if that's just me being a dude. It's like, oh, Faith's pretty. But I didn't feel like she did terrible. It's not like Madam Web levels of
Oh, no.
gross miscasting.
No.
Although I did get some vibes. When you're put into a framework of a Twister sequel where everyone Twister is so melodramatic, it puts a lot on your shoulders, and probably was a little more than she could deliver.
She felt like she was in a different movie. And this movie needed really solid chemistry between the two leads. And she seems lovely. Like I said, I'm not trying to hate on her. She might be better in other movies that are more probably suited for her talent. I just don't think she was good for a blockbuster movie of this type, where you kind of need a little bit more the heightened emotion.
I kind of feel like she was specifically cast because she can simultaneously look 18 and 28, and therefore serves their purposes of the flashback sequence, the extended flashback sequence at the beginning, playing a college student and then fast forward 5 years. So I could see why they did that, and it is fairly effective. They have a pretty I guess it's not a huge age gap, but they're 10 years apart, the actual actor and actress. And I think also seeing her as a college student in the beginning, because she doesn't change a whole lot between then, you get this impression in your mind of, oh, she's really young. She's really young the whole time, because you start off with that. And so seeing her with Glen Powell, I think also maybe undermines some of the chemistry a little bit too.
There was a little vibe of that. I did not get they're falling in love type of chemistry.
Yeah, more like two nerds who have found each other. And in that sense, they both have storm experience, more complicated backgrounds, but they can speak each other's language, which is why they get along. But yeah, in terms of romantic attraction, it didn't seem quite there, but that's clearly where the movie is going.
And a lot of people are like, oh, they have great chemistry. I've seen that a lot. I think it's just because Glen Powell is working overtime. He has so much charisma. I think people are kind of giving the relationship a little bit too much credit, their chemistry. I think it's just mainly Glen Powell is that good with having chemistry with anybody.
Which we touched on a bit in our Hitman review too.
Yes, which I feel like Hitman was the complete opposite, where him and the co-lead, the lady, I can't remember people's names. I'm so sorry. But his co-lead, they had amazing chemistry, but they were kind of let down by the movie itself. Where here,
put them into this movie, and
oh my gosh,
and I think you would have a much better hit.
Yes, I can already see this at least going up 1-star rating for me if it was that level of chemistry. This is a silly, fun movie, so chemistry between the leads is so pivotal. Also, Daisy Jones her mannerisms, they're just so subtle. And I just don't think it's appropriate for this type of movie. Her character has turns and they happen so quickly. That's like, well, why did she decide to do that? And I think you needed someone who had a bit more facial acting going on to really sell those turns.
The melodrama, yeah.
Yeah.
She had a little more melodrama. She was still in Where the Crawdads Sing, which I haven't seen, so I don't know why I'm commenting on that.
You're talking
It just feels like something that would be more subtle.
I think what would have helped this movie and elevated it, honestly, her character altogether, it shouldn't have also been centered around her. I think her and the other corporate team that she's a part of, Stormpar, yes, could have pushed all that aside. Maybe they could be in the background. I think the conflict, it should have been about Glen Powell and his group of like Wild West YouTubers. And I think the conflict should have been in there. Maybe some of them, like Glen Powell himself, are more about the daring stunts and getting the views and the money. And maybe some people in his group are more trying to actually figure out information about tornadoes, trying to help people. Like you could have had one of the other people in his group be more of the code lead with Glen Powell and be more of the other side, like, what are we doing to help? And you could have given this co-lead the background flashback. Her background is that people in the community came together and they helped each other to get over this tragic event. And so her concern could be trying to like, oh, but what are we doing to help people after the fact? We're using these tornadoes to put money in our pockets, but what are we doing to help the people whose lives just got destroyed right after?
Yeah.
And so you could have that conflict like within their group. That way also it doesn't feel like it's just a rip from the first movie where it's like the ragtag team versus the corporate team again.
It was a sort of a mildly interesting twist to put the lead in the place of the corporate team from the beginning, to sort of turn it on its head a little bit, and see from inside more from their point of view. And then she gets introduced to the other team. But you're right, it short circuits the team dynamics of the actual main character team, the team as a character, and you sort of short circuit their development because you don't get to spend as much time with them and looking at them as real people. They become a little bit more caricatured, a little more shallow, and you're right, there's no team conflict within that team, so there's no real chance to explore any of those dynamics. And you're right, there's definitely angles you can explore with the morality of storm chasing, which happens in real life. And there are disagreements within the community among different chasers. What's the ethical way of going about it? That could have added a little bit more depth and conflict to the movie.
Yeah, because it seemed like it touched on that in the beginning of the movie in trying to make them look like careless assholes. But then all of a sudden, when she starts to learn about the team more, she learns, oh, no, they're not. They're actually good, all good people trying to do good. I wasn't really for that bait and switch. I feel like it would have been more interesting if, we dug into the group and it was maybe just a different amount of opinions of what they're doing. And that really could have been interesting because you're right. This happens in real life and it is kind of an ethics and morality debate. And I'm not saying we have to get so deep because this is a popcorn movie.
It's a popcorn movie.
But I think it would have added some interesting dynamics to the group and get people maybe thinking a little bit. It's okay to have a little thought in your popcorn movie.
Yeah, basically the only real takeaway they had was corporate bad, grassroots good, which was the exact same message as the first movie. So it didn't really, despite the switch of starting with the corporate team, it ended up in the exact same place. And actually, I thought it worked against a little bit because they even throw so it's like corporate bad, okay? But then we have this scene we got people from NASA, from NOAA, so you feel like they're throwing them under the bus by lumping them with a corporate. It's like, hey, the NOAA is the National Weather. These are important organizations. Don't why are they out here catching strays?
Javi, which is Kate's friend, that's why she's there. Javi goes to New York, asks Kate to come back to storm chasing, to help him, like 3D image or tornado. And honestly, that is really interesting, but he has to be backed by a corporation because he needs the money, which is kind of a shame. Because again, that could have been interesting too. Because at first I'm like, oh, like she's with the corporation. That could have brought some interesting dynamics of like, what do scientists do when they need to get this information to help people, but they don't have the money to do the things to help people? And I felt like it was very shallow, like what happened.
So let's talk about storm chasers. So I did some research on this because I'm wondering, how realistic is this portrayal? Especially since it was almost a verbatim portrayal from the first movie. Like they have the RV with the speakers, which was a great moment when they come in blasting the music
like
in universe, harkening back to the first movie. I'm like, okay, so my first impression was this. Okay, this is a world that is our world, but in an alternate universe where Twister really happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which makes it a sequel, but not really, because it has no returning characters, but they did exist, so it's not a reboot. So not a reboot, not really a sequel, it's just in the same universe. So my impression was, okay, it's a universe where Twister happened, therefore storm chasing has been blown up to like these ridiculous proportions of everyone's trying to like copy them. I think someone literally says, doesn't someone literally say like, oh, it's the Bill Harding effect or something? When talking about all the storm chasers. I thought someone said that, like, oh yeah, this is all because of them, right? Because they're all trying to follow in their footsteps.
Which I could see. Yep.
Glen Powell's team to the extreme is like almost the exact same setup. I'm like, okay, but obviously this isn't like realistic. Well, it turns out it's actually more realistic than you think.
Oh boy.
So basically, Glen Powell's character, Tyler Owens, is heavily based on a real storm chaser named Reed Timmer. You can watch all his videos on YouTube. He basically is Glen Powell, right? And they have a special truck. Probably the big difference in terms of realism is, Glen Powell drives around with this pretty normal looking truck and just has the drills.
Oh, the drills were cool.
The drills are cool. He has the same thing, Reed Timmer. They instead of drills, it's just stakes, but they're hydraulic powered, and they dig into the ground. And the thing is built like a tank. That's the other big difference. It has a whole like armored shell on it, and it has hydraulics in it. And when they drive into a tornado, and they lower it to the ground and stake it in exactly like in the movie. Like, holy shit, this is real.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna have to check out one of these videos.
So, yeah, now with a tank, it makes more sense because the whole idea is it's trying to keep the wind from coming underneath you to lift you up, right?
Yes.
So that was surprising to find out that basically this is a real person. They shoot rockets into tornadoes with sensors in them. I don't think they've shot fireworks into them. I don't know if that would actually work.
That's crazy.
And so it's interesting with their setup, seeing this real life person, you get some interesting things. So they, they live stream these things, which has a couple benefits. Obviously, they get a benefit of, some monetary compensation with ads, but also they are live reporting locations of tornadoes. They have GPS displayed on their live stream.
Okay.
And according to them, this helps like official sources know where the tornadoes actually are. 'Cause sometimes it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
So now I don't know how much of this is like true in terms of how much it actually ends up helping, but from their perspective, it's like, no, yeah, we're doing a service too.
Okay.
And there are stories of people who were watching their stream, saw them that they were tracking a tornado that was coming towards their house, and saved their families because they were able to get undercover.
Holy shit.
So it's some crazy stuff. I mean, they've had videos of them like, taking people to the hospital who they found. Like they saved a truck driver who they found a semi truck that was overturned. And so they saved the guy. It's like, so it's pretty crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously this guy's probably the most extreme because he has this crazy setup with a car that allows him to actually drive into the tornado. But there's lots of these storm chasers, and there is like disagreements and questions among them, like how much do you stop and help, and how much do you just pursue the tornado and pursue the footage? When you brought up, oh yeah, this would have been a more interesting angle to explore in the movie, I thought of this right away because I think, that would have been pretty interesting to examine some of the ethics of storm chasing and what kinds of services are they providing. Anyway, I just thought that was cool. That this is basically this is a lot more
true to life.
Yeah. And in a weird meta way, these people were inspired by the movie Twister to do all this, which is exactly the same as the movie, except that Twister is a real person. It is the Bill Harding effect, just one's fake and one's real. So I thought that was interesting. Oh my
goodness. Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt, your influence. Telling you, Twister is one of the best blockbuster movies. I do want to warn people, if you do want to bring children, there's some pretty intense moments, especially the cold opening.
Oh, yes.
Our daughter got a little sad.
Yeah, so prior to this, our daughter, she's 9 right now, turning 10. She's seen Twister now twice, and she loves Twister. That does have a couple intense scenes, notably the opening, and then all the way at the end with the Carrie-Ells team when they get their comeuppance. Well, he gets his comeuppance in his poor second in command who was just trying to do his job.
Second command. Always felt bad for him. I'm like, peace out.
Anyway, so that is a couple things, but I think the combination of it being so few and far between and also the CGI and technology of the time, like our daughter has a pretty good sense of like, okay, this is fake, So it didn't get to her that much. And so she was super excited to see Twisters. And we're like, okay, we're going to give it a shot. But yeah, I think modern movie making really makes these things a lot more intense and believable than they used to be.
Especially in a Dolby theater.
Yeah, it was a bit loud.
It was probably a little too intense for her. So she's kind of mixed. She said it's the scariest movie she's ever seen. But she also loves some parts.
She said her favorite character was the fire tornado.
So I'm so glad she went because she really wanted to go. And I think kids need to be able to take, little chances on stuff.
And it's fine to be scared.
Expand the horizon. And it's fine to be scared. Poor thing. But I think it was good for her. She was mixed. That was her. She said that's her rating. 3 out of 5. I go, you know what? That's a fair rating. I'd probably go somewhere around that for different reasons. That's probably around where I'm at.
Let's talk about some of the things the movie did well. So one thing that I did like, and I expected this, was, the improvements in CGI.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really excited to see their representation of the tornado, the destruction, sure, but also just like the storm system, the clouds, how they form and how they move. Because the first movie was, sort of a little arcadey, and how the tornadoes jumped around and vanished and reappeared and did all this stuff. So I was really excited to see that. And for the most part, I think they delivered. They had a pretty cool sequence where they're describing how a tornado forms, and they show these sort of views of the clouds forming and everything, and that was pretty cool.
Yes.
They were able to sprinkle in some little advice for handling a Twister and a little bit of myth busting. Like at the beginning, they specifically tackle the overpass, which, that's been a myth for a while, is go to an overpass when a tornado's around, but that's actually literally absolutely not the thing to do because it creates like a wind tunnel underneath.
Yeah.
So it attracts debris and also can just suck you right out. They do some stuff later with like when they're trying to save the people in the pool and the one person isn't staying low enough to the ground, because that's the thing is the wind, it's not like sucking things up, strictly speaking, it's lifting things.
Yes.
So the whole idea is you want to make it so that air does not get underneath you, because then it will lift you out. That's how like the Reed Timmer with his tank thing, that's how it works to keep them safe, is it keeps the wind from going underneath them. If you do find yourself in a caught in a tornado, you want to be absolutely flat to the ground. So they sort of illustrate that a little bit.
I imagine it would help with debris too, because that's also another huge thing.
Debris is the thing that kills you in a tornado, more so than
same with flooding.
Else. Yeah,
a lot of stuff.
It's always debris.
I do think, the technology is definitely a lot better, and so everything looks better. And there were a couple intense moments with staging, intensity, drama. I just think the first movie still did better for me. Like actually being scared and invested and like what's gonna happen. And the second one, it's some moments of like, ooh, like when they're stuck in the car in middle of the movie, Javi and his second command. That was probably the most I was like, oh no, Javi.
Mm-hmm.
And a little bit at the end when they're in the town. So there was moments that are really good, but I don't think they had really great sequences like maybe the first movie had for me. I know a lot of people think that the second movie did better in this department. And that's totally fine. I understand the look of it, especially. It's probably more realistic. Maybe the theater was also too hot. Maybe I just wasn't in it. Who knows?
I think they didn't utilize it enough to leverage a unique experience from the first one. I think they had a couple interesting twists in the first movie, but for the most part, it follows a lot of the same formula.
Yes.
Where you have like the with the rodeo, which was a mirror of the drive-in scene from the first movie, reused even the same, tornado appearing in the flashes of lightning, and it just outlines its silhouette, which is cool. But because we've already seen that, I was kind of hoping they would.
I felt like we were doing a checklist.
Yeah, I was hoping they would be a little bit more creative in how they represented these things. They almost got there with a fire tornado. That was at least a unique.
Fire tornado was pretty cool.
You needed more of that. Like they had that, but it didn't do anything.
No.
It was a fire tornado for about a minute. It didn't go anywhere, and then it left, and it wasn't a fire tornado anymore. So it was a brief visual treat, but it didn't impact the plot at all. So as far as a scene and building tension, I was hoping they would do some more creative things to come up with new ways in the spirit of the first movie, but new ways of showing the dangers and the power of these tornadoes.
Overall, like I said, okay sequel to a legend for me. But I still think that this is better than most popcorn blockbuster movies in our modern time. Like most of them are just awful. And I still had a good enough time with this movie that I would put it above a lot of those. And Glen Powell is selling it. Even though poor Kate had a rough time with her, I still think Glen Powell is doing enough to where I'm like, okay, I'm okay with this ride. We can go with it. So I still think you should check it out, especially if this is up your alley. I think it's a fun time.
But yeah, I think it's very inoffensive. It is. There's nothing in it that I don't think it insults its audience. It doesn't rely on cheap laughs or cheap thrills. It feels pretty sincere, which I appreciate. Yes. So definitely a good time. Good, not great. And definitely some missed opportunities. And yeah, I don't think it lives up to the first one. The first one is always going to be a classic watch. I don't know if I'd return to this.
Yeah, I don't know.
Willingly.
I'm definitely dealing with that with a lot of movies this year, where it's like, it's good, but we're missing that X factor. We're missing that little something something to kind of put it over the edge.
All right, so our second movie today is Longlegs. In Longlegs, FBI agent Lee Harker is a gifted new recruit assigned to the unsolved case of an elusive serial killer. As the case takes complex turns, unearthing evidence of the occult, Harker discovers a personal connection to the merciless killer and must race against time to stop him before he claims the lives of another innocent family.
Well, at least they got her name right on this one.
Yes. So, Tasheena, you saw this one. I did not, so you're going to take the lead here.
Yeah, this is not Jonathan's jam.
Yeah, the trailers did look interesting. The marketing on this one was on point. Big hype machine.
The hype machine was huge on this movie. I am very mixed. I'm going to try my best to go through all my notes, but there is a lot to dive into.
Well, let's start with, you have a movie according to Letterboxd for this one.
Oh my goodness, I'm already forgetting. All right, before we dive into the movie, the FBI might get it wrong when guessing whose legs are long. Nick Cage can be seen, when it's 14, to help sing a birthday song.
Oh, wow.
From Jaybird, which apparently he does all of his reviews in limericks.
It's like a letterbox.
So first, the movie starts out with a cold open. It looks about 1970s. Girl meets Nick Cage's Longlegs. This cold opening was actually the hype for me. It is probably one of the best cold openings I've ever seen. It is so good. It sets the tone. It gives you all the dread and the vibes. I was ready. I was like, oh, we're going to go on a ride. And I would say the movie probably keeps up with this for about half the movie. I would say about half the movie, we're getting some stellar vibes. We are getting that creepy crawly feeling at the back of your neck. Like, oh, like you're just waiting for something in the background to like move. And it happens a couple of times that it really gets to me like, ah. But sadly, I don't think the movie kept it up. And I'm trying to think like what happened? Like what at what moment did things kind of turn for me and it kind of started to slowly go downhill. So after the cold opening, we meet Lee Harker. She is an FBI agent. She's new. A situation happens where she knows what's going to happen or where the purpose that they need to get. And it's pretty much psychic ability. Like I feel like she has the shining. That's the closest I can come up to it. I'm like, oh, does she have the shining? Because she's like, oh, he's there in that house. And her partner is like, why do you think that? And she's like, I don't know. So her partner's like, okay, whatever, knocks on the door. The killer was in that house. So after that happens, the FBI give her a psychic test.
As one does.
As one does. I'm like, did FBI do this in the 90s? Because our story is actually in the 90s. And we know this because the FBI office we're in, oh, you always see Bill Clinton's picture in the background. I think Bill Clinton was in this movie more than Longlegs. And so she's put on the case to help out with the investigation because it's been going on for like 30 years and they don't have any leads. Because what happens is the murder looks like it is a murder-suicide by the father. Like it's always a family that has a daughter. The father kills the family brutally and then he kills himself. And there's no evidence of anybody else being there. The only reason why they know Longlegs was there is because he leaves a note with his little cryptic zodiac messages on there, and then he writes his name on the bottom. So this has been going on for 30 years. I think they said there's been about 10 cases, and I think it's all in Oregon. The head FBI agent on the case is played by Blair Underwood, which I love Blair Underwood. I'm so glad to see him again, and I hope he gets more jobs after this because he's great. And I would have to say the acting overall in this movie is solid. Loved it. Along with the direction. I think the acting and the direction is what is going to sell this movie. I think the problems come with the screenplay. It's just hard because there's definitely a lot of things I know didn't work because personally it didn't work for me. So it's kind of hard to separate, okay, this is just personally, this didn't work for me, but it seems like it's working for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like Nick Cage. When you see him in the cold opening, you actually don't see his whole face. And that's what makes it really creepy. You just see from the girl's perspective in the cold opening. So you just see from the chin down. So you see a bit of his scraggly hair. His clothes are all white, but like washed out. He's had them for the 30 years. Like he's just been washing the same outfit over and over again. Against the white background of the opening shot, it really did fill me with like creepiness. The more I see of Nick Cage in this movie, the more the spell goes away. Especially his face didn't do much for me. It looked like it was Nick Cage with too much filler in his cheeks. That's what it looked like. He was puffy. I think they could have played down that and just had his face be really pale white, which it was in the movie, and the scraggly hair. I don't think he needed like the filler cheeks and this distorted face. Because they're like, oh, he's unrecognizable. I'm like, no, it's Nick Cage. Like, I can tell it's Nick Cage. He just looks like Nick Cage with a bad, botched face job. Then, as we go on, he does more of his Nick Cage isms. Because I feel in the cult opening, it was more just his voice was really warped and creepy. It just comes off of more of Nick Cage isms than actually being this Longlegs character for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of just slowly started not working for me. Thankfully, the movie ends his arc before he goes completely off the road. Because I feel like if we got any more of Nick Cage, it would have been a disaster.
Do you think it would have worked better with a different casting?
Honestly, probably. Because it's Nick Cage. They try to do so much to make you think it wasn't him. But because of his mannerisms, he can't help doing his Nick Cage-isms when you let him loose. And the less he did those, it stuck more to him just being creepy and having this really odd voice. But as soon as he did certain things that were very Nick Cage, it didn't work for me. Now, that is definitely a personal opinion. Some people loved his performance, thought it was one of the best things he's ever done. There's some other things I definitely want to dive into, but I think this is where we'd get way into like spoiler territory.
All right, so we'll throw up a spoiler warning. Spoilers. If you're interested in seeing Longlegs, go see it.
This is where the red buzzard would light up.
Yes.
Boo, 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 spoilers. So the main crux of Longlegs is, like I said, the family murders. It's focused around the daughter. The daughter in the family is a child who's about to have their 9th birthday on the 14th of that month. And it's usually within 6 days on either side of that birthday. So they tell us that because, like I said, Lee Harker's coming into the case. They're giving her all the information. Blair Underwood takes her, Lee Harker, over to his house to meet his family. He has a wife and daughter, and they're chit-chatting. And then the daughter's like, oh, do you want to come to my birthday party this weekend? And I'm just like, wait, what? And I'm like, oh, no, don't tell me they just did that. So this is going to be the end. This is going to be our closer. This is going to be the last family. Blair Underwood, his wife, and his daughter. Because I knew that, it was more like, okay, try to ignore that and focus on how do we get here? Because Blair Underwood seems like a great husband and father. He seems like a great guy. So how does Longlegs then convince him to kill his family and himself? Sorry, Oz Perkins, but you really tipped your hand on that one. And surprise, surprise, that's what happens. Also, this is being compared a lot to Silence of the Lambs, but I don't think the comparison goes too far because Lee Harker in this movie, she, like I said, she has The Shining. So she's not like Clarice, who actually does detective work, who actually investigates. Like, they show her investigating, but then she just knows something. Between The Shining and also Longlegs sends her a letter after she gets on the case with the key code, pretty much, of how to, like, decipher what he's writing. It's not really anything on her own detective skills that she figures out. It's like she's either given help by Longlegs or it's The Shining that helps her out.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the comparisons are more at the surface level. FBI lady, serial killer, dark vibes.
Exactly. And that's about as far as it goes. Man, it's hard to explain because Oz Perkins doesn't really care to explain to the audience. To find out, it's pretty much Satanism. Hail Satan, baby. That's kind of lame to me. I don't know. Satanism is not scary to me. And that might be where things turned for me in the movie when I found out the influence he's having on these families is all rooted in Satanism. And they don't explain, like, what he's trying to do. Like, what does it bring about? We don't get anything like that.
So it's not that he has some clever way of accomplishing this or a clever, like, mental trick or influence that he exerts these people. It's just like magic. Magic makes them do it.
How he does it is he is a doll maker, and he creates mini me dolls of the girls. And in the dolls are little silver containers that apparently contain black cloud. We only see it once. The doll gets delivered, and it is the doll that does all this. The twist, because somebody's like, oh, there's not even really a twist in this movie. I'm like, yeah, there's a huge twist in this movie, because the reason why Lee Harker is a part of this is she is the little girl in the cold opening. She met Longlegs in the 70s, and apparently he asked a question, and he gave her the choice of pretty much, I can kill you and your daughter, or you can work for me. Hail Satan, baby. And so her mom is the accomplice. So that is the twist. At the end, you find out her mom dresses up as a nun, takes the little My Doll ball, brings it to the family, goes, this is a gift from the church here, and gives it the doll. I was like, what? Yeah, he's just making these dolls and stuffing their heads with the convincing juice. I don't know, convincing vapor? It's more of a vapor. There we go. I'm also guessing the reason why she has the shining is from the devil. And it's so weird because I felt like he went into great detail on how this whole accomplice thing happened, but it wasn't the information I really needed. The ending didn't land for me, is pretty much what it comes down to. So that's that. I don't know. I think vibes only take you so far.
Mm-hmm.
Because this reminded me of another movie. It's Cure. It's a Japanese movie from 1997, where it's a similar situation where they're investigating the string of murders where the only connection is that each person, after they're killed, their murderer puts like an X on their neck. They carve it in. And that is the only thing that connects them together. And so it's similar to where you find out there is this mysterious person that connects all of them. And he does what I thought Nick Cage was going to do, which is actually influence the people. And that is way more compelling because you see step by step how he actually infiltrates these people. And here it's just a doll with pageant. And I really think they should have dropped this Satanism angle. I think it should just been like maybe demons or an older religion. Every time I hear Satanism, I'm just like, womp womp. I don't know. It just is not scary to me at all.
Even if you kept Satanism, you could have made it a little more nebulous of if it actually was or not. Make it ambiguous. You know, was there a paranormal influence here, or is something else going on? Maybe he's just a crazy person. Maybe it's Maybelline.
Like, just so many things that I'm like, what does this mean? Some of the images were good, but I feel like they were not tied to anything. And I saw somebody saying this is a hype machine in search of a movie. And by the end, that's how I felt like. I felt like I was in search for the movie. And the setup was so good. It's just really sad that the ending didn't really pay off for me. And I'm not one of those who are like, oh, it wasn't scary. I'm like, no, that's not the problem.
Yeah, it's a tired complaint.
Yeah. I actually thought the first half did a really good job with setting up those dread vibes. Like, it was really getting to me. And just slowly, like, one thing after another, I felt like things were added that I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about this. To the point where by the end, I just wasn't on board. I wasn't on the edge of my seat stressed about, what's going to happen? You know what I mean? I just wasn't where I feel like the movie was trying to take me. But because I was so confused by certain elements, it's kind of hard then to be invested in the end scene where I'm like, but what does this mean? Like, if she doesn't do this, what does it mean?
Right.
Like, the devil's just going to be like hanging and chilling on the earth, like party down. I needed something. I needed one little thing to anchor me to know why this was crucial for this to not to happen at the end of the movie, for Nick Cage to fail. Why?
It's interesting you mentioned a hype machine in search of a movie that makes the Nick Cage casting make more sense, because it definitely drives up the hype machine quite a bit. And we talked about a movie maybe would have benefited from a different casting, but I think it would have then would that then pull some of the veneer off of that hype machine and make actually the other issues become more apparent?
Yeah, I feel like Nick Cage probably did cover up a lot of sins with his performance. So I'm sad that I didn't love this more. I don't think it's a bad movie by any means. I would probably, for me, it was good. And that's the frustrating part. I felt like I was right there with the movie, and we were so close to this being like awesome.
And it starts drifting away.
And yeah, starts like the black vapor drifting into the air.
It was just black mold. You can't mess around with that stuff.
That's the whole, actually, that is the culprit of the movie. That's black actually what's going on. All these people had black mold because of these dolls that had nothing to do with Satanism. It was just black mold got into their brains, and I guess they went crazy.
Yeah. It's really a safety PSA.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
And every time someone yells Hail Satan, I just chuckle. So it kind of...
Did they actually say Hail Satan in the movie?
Oh, yeah. Right before Longlegs dies, before he kills himself, he yells Hail Satan. And I'm pretty sure Mommy Nun also yelled that at some point. And I don't know why, it breaks the tension for me. It breaks everything. And I'm just like...
I think it's a line that has too much baggage at this point.
Yes. And it should have been way more. That's where we should have had the mystery and the nebulous. Is this real dark power behind this? What is this? Like, that's where the mystery stuff could have been. And we didn't need any explanation. Instead of, I feel like, what were key parts that should have been explained and weren't. Yeah. I feel like the wrong things were held back and the wrong things were revealed.
And I think there's a way you can do a mystical or paranormal force to where it becomes an allegory for something in real life, an emotion, a trauma, a motivation, and it makes that what would normally just be a MacGuffin or a meaningless, just all-powerful evil entity, it makes that more interesting, compelling, and something you can relate to. But to have it be face value, it's just Satan. It's just bad.
And like
almost
Cure
undercuts a lot of the tension.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before the movie Cure, it dealt with repression. And there's more to it, but that's kind of like I felt like was the allegory. It's like why all of a sudden did they go from like 0 to 60? Right. And I feel like because that is a cultural thing to deal with, and we deal with too, but I know it's more prevalent in Japan. And so that made sense why that would work, especially so well in a Japanese setting. And that's kind of what I was hoping for here. I actually like the idea of him like this creepy guy coming in and like, what does he do that convinces these men to brutally kill their families and then kill themselves? I was on board for that.
Yeah, that definitely highlights a way you can go about it that's a lot more compelling. Because driving home the point so much that, oh no, yeah, these people it really did flip them 180. They were a completely good person. They love their families, and then in their attempt to build tension that way, where it could be anyone, it sort of reduces it because it just becomes this God switch.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a bummer.
It's interesting. You've had a couple horror movies now that have not met your expectations.
Yes, but I want to say this is still way better than Maxine.
Way better than Maxine.
The craft, the acting, there's still so much in here that to me, it's worth giving it a try. It's just personally for me, it ended up being disappointing, but I still rank it so much higher than Maxine.
Would you say, it did not offend you the way that Maxine?
Oh no, yeah. Maxine was definitely offended me how bad it ended up being.
Gotcha.
Where this, I loved his direction. I was disappointed because I was so in love with the first half of the movie.
So yeah, maybe for other people, yeah, it would work more for them if the second half's more their vibe. But
yeah,
and that's also an important note when we're talking about things that disappointed us or we liked or didn't like. There are still levels and tiers and order of magnitude differences between two things that we might not like.
Yeah,
Maxine, this.
Oh yeah,
the vibe of the review seems very similar between both of them about disappointment and things not living up to our expectations, and yet there's still a vast expanse between them in terms of overall quality and our recommendation.
Exactly. Yes, because I would still recommend people giving Longlegs a chance, where Maxine, I would be like, you know what? I think you should just save your time. Or at least wait till streaming. All right.
Any final thoughts?
No, I think I got to where I was going eventually. Sometimes it's hard when I'm the only one who watched it and trying to summarize. I feel like that's my weak point. I'm not the best at summarizing things. We definitely need to get you out to more movies so I don't have to do as much summarizing and I can just chat about the movie. I just need to drag you to more movies. We do have some special news we have a bonus episode coming up.
Yes. Next week, we will be covering X-Men 97.
Woohoo!
So that'll be our first television show review.
Yes.
So it'll drop between our 2-week movie reviews.
Yeah, because the week after is when we'll have our review for Deadpool and Wolverine. So we thought, great time to finally watch X-Men 97 after everybody else has watched it.
Way after.
And we have a special guest. So I think I had a really good time recording this.
Yep.
I hope other people will enjoy it.
Well, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you then. Bye.
Bye.